Let's take a look at what Mr. Trump actually stands for now with Ryan Girdusky, who's a Trump supporter and writes for redalertpolitics.com. Ryan, you heard Mr. Obama's words on Donald Trump about him rattling world leaders. Trump says it's a good thing, is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, ironically, world leaders were rattled by Barack Obama 8 years ago. They felt that he was doing things like, throwing Mubarak, from our closest allies, off, out of favor in Egypt. They thought that meeting in Iran for the Iran deal was out of control. They thought that there was a lot of things they had problems with. And in the end, I mean, President Obama has been the greatest leader in foreign policy. Hopefully Trump will be a lot better and a lot stronger, and we'll show the world that we have a strong American leader.
And he told the crowd in North Dakota today that I will give you everything. I'll give you what you've been looking for 50 years. I'm the only one. So what exactly then does he stand for, Ryan? What is it that Americans have been waiting for 50 years?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that Americans are waiting for 30 years, of polling anyway, is lower levels of immigration. I mean, if you look at Gallup polls, if you look at Pew Research, for 30 years, very consistently, Americans have demanded that we reduce our legal levels of immigration. It's very important. I think that changing our trade agreements and reworking our trade agreements, Americans are absolutely furious about the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership. They want to rework NAFTA, stop sending so many of our jobs overseas and get some of those factories back in America. And I think that in foreign policy, Americans do not want an interventionist foreign policy. They don't want another George W. Bush who starts wars we don't need to fight. They don't want another Barack Obama who mishandles foreign situations like Libya and Syria. They want somebody who exudes strength, who doesn't get taken advantage of, and doesn't get involved in foreign quagmires, and that's Donald Trump.
Some 60% of Americans still disapprove of Mr. Trump, and that is the largest disapproval rating, as I recall, of a presidential candidate, isn't it? Can he turn that around?
Yeah, and he started to. The new NBC Wall Street Journal poll, taken I think a week ago, show that the variant variables of Donald Trump dropped by 10 points. And across all polling, Trump has increased his favorability. You can look at the Huffington Post, which crunches all the numbers of all the polls together, and Trump's positives have been on the upswing. Trump's negatives have been on the down spiral. He's agreed to debate Bernie Sanders for charity. He's for $10 million to go to female health research clinics, I believe. And he's been more open to showing a lighter side of himself, and hopefully a more respectful side of himself. Although you never know. But that's all the ways he's going to improve his numbers nationally.
Nationally, indeed. America first is his mantra. He's not the first president that has suggested that he would put America first. Indeed, every president says that, doesn't he? Sorry, he's not the first presidential candidate. He's far from being president so far. But is there any presidential candidate that doesn't say America first?
Well, yes, there are plenty. I mean, George W. Bush was a globalist. Barack Obama was a globalist. George H.W. Bush was a globalist.
No. Being a globalist doesn't mean you're not putting America first, though, does it?
Well, they didn't, though. I mean, we lost 20 million manufacturing jobs. We lost thousands of soldiers in Iraq. And, I mean, it's in the most recent study over the last 5 years, the majority of new jobs have gone to non-Americans. Those are not pro-American positions. I mean, the last candidate to really sound like Donald Trump was probably Pat Buchanan, who ran for the president in 92, 96, and 2000. And before then, I mean, if you want to talk about presidents, you'd have to go back to the 1920s when presidents like Calvin Coolidge were promising to put America first.
George W. Bush put America first after 9/11, didn't he? He put America first. Ronald Reagan put America first?
No. George W. Bush, after 9/11, said, go to the mall and live your life, and then got involved in a foreign war that we don't need to fight that killed and wounded tens of thousands of Americans. It's been 9/11. My mother worked in the World Trade Center. I have a very personal opinion on 9/11. I know a lot of people who died on 9/11. I'm born and raised in New York City. It has been now 2001, it's on 2006, it's been 15 years. Our borders have been completely wide open for 15 years after terrorists walked in this country. Our visa system has not changed 1 ounce. We've had dozens of attempted or successful terrorist attacks in our country, and 15 years after 3,000 Americans were killed, none of that was changed.
I think many people who have tried to apply for American visas since then will know that it has changed. The policy has changed somewhat. However, leave that to one side. Ryan, let's leave that to one side and get on to Donald Trump and his politics, because he says today that he would withdraw from the Paris Climate Change Agreement. Are you sure that America's allies, who also signed that agreement, will just sit by and accept that? Will they have to? Is he forcing this unilaterally?
Well, Trump is a master negotiator, and I'm sure if he were to sit there and walk away from an agreement, like Ronald Reagan, who walked away from several agreements with the Russians on nuclear proliferation, only to end up signing a stronger agreement that favored America more. You know, you play the card that you're strongest with, and President Obama, who has never negotiated a deal in his life until he was the President of the United States of America, doesn't make the best deal.
And what about the way he abuses people? You will have heard of him referring to Elizabeth Warren as Pocahontas because of her claims of Cherokee ancestry. Isn't that racist?
No. Elizabeth Warren, who made $300,000 a year teaching one class at Harvard University, used her supposed Cherokee heritage to get herself into Harvard College. I think that that's racist. I think the fact that she sat there, who was like 1/18th Cherokee, used her minuscule Native American background to place herself ahead of very hardworking people, including tons of Asian Americans who just filed a lawsuit today against Ivy League universities because they were being discriminated against based upon their race.
I'm presuming, though, that we'll accept that his pledge to ban all Muslims from America would be considered to be racist, if not sectarian.
No. He did not. No, I'm sorry, you are misrepresenting him. He did not say I'm going to ban all Muslims. He said he would have a halt on Muslim immigration until the visa system
I'll accept that. I'll accept that. But most people, I'm sure, would agree that that's, if not racist, at least it is sectarian. Will Donald Trump soften on that position?
He has said that he's going to put Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, during 9/11 in charge of a commission that would sit there and say, how do we improve our visa system so another San Bernardino, another 9/11, another Boston bombing does not happen in the United States of America? And how do we stop the carnage of importing terrorism?
And not to talk of homegrown terrorists, Timothy McVeigh was not a Muslim.
I'm sorry?
Timothy McVeigh was not a Muslim. Homegrown terrorism is a problem.
20 years ago, we had an insane white man who was born and bred in America. Since those 20 years, we've had dozens of attempted or successful terrorist attacks by Muslims, many of them who were not born in this country. So let's take care of the problem of today, not the problem of 20 years ago. And the problem of today is a lot of times terrorist attacks are created by Muslims, whether you like it or not. England has their own problems with Muslims up in northern England raping little white girls. They don't want to talk about that.
Come on, Ryan.
That's true. Did that not happen? Did 400 white girls not get raped in northern England?
Ryan, that is beneath you or I. You don't. Actually, no, that's not true. As you know, that's not true.
Pakistanis do not rape white girls in Rotherham, England.
I'm not even going to engage in this conversation, Ryan. It's really beneath me and beneath you as well. But thank you for talking to us, Ryan Girdusky. Then I do apologise for anything he says that might be offensive.